Welcome to the GameChanger Podcast with Alice and Bob. First principles, Web3, decentralization, power to the users. A place to discuss how we are building a better future together.
This thing is making some seriously bold claims.
Yeah, they're not messing around, are they? Cardano Metawallet. That's a pretty hefty title to live up to.
But let's break it down for our listeners, shall we? What does Cardano Metawallet even mean in plain English?
Okay, so imagine this. You've got ADA stashed away in a few different places, right? Maybe a hardware wallet for your cold storage, some ADA in a software wallet like Nami, and let's throw in a seed phrase for good measure, just to make things interesting.
Seed phrases, hardware wallets like your ledgers and Trezors, browser extensions. They even mention handling shared treasuries.
What GameChanger wants to be is the command center for all of them.
Hold on, I'm getting some major one ring to rule them all vibes here. So instead of juggling a dozen different wallet apps, I can manage everything, hardware, software, seed phrases, all from GameChanger.
You got it. It's about unifying all those different ways we hold and interact with Cardano into one streamlined platform. No more jumping through hoops just to use different parts of the ecosystem.
That's already pretty slick. But then I dug into the READM and saw this universal dApp connector thing. And now my mind is officially blown. Walk us through that, because that's where things get really exciting for me. How does that actually work in practice?
It's surprisingly elegant. GameChanger leverages the universal languages of the internet, JSON and URLs.
Okay, now you're getting technical. Break that down for me.
Basically, dApps package instructions as something called GC script, which gets encoded into a simple URL. You click on the link, and GameChanger Wallet acts as the middleman. It interprets those instructions from the dApp and then facilitates the interaction with your chosen wallet.
So instead of going to a website, clicking that link is like talking to a dApp through GameChanger.
Exactly. And because it's built on these open standards, it opens up a world of possibilities. Think about scanning a QR code on a website or even like at a coffee shop to access a dApp.
Instead of dealing with clunky browser extensions or whatever,
Yeah.
I could just scan a QR code. I like where this is going.
Or even sharing access through messaging apps.
All without leaving my preferred wallet.
Exactly.
Okay, now I'm starting to see how this could be a game changer, not just for users like me, but for dApp developers too.
Absolutely. This has the potential to make Cardano dApps far more accessible and user-friendly, which could be huge for wider adoption.
Right, because right now, let's be honest, using dApps is not exactly the smoothest experience. But it's not just about convenience, right? There's more to GameChanger than just simplifying the user experience. Tell me about this GC script thing. So GC script. Whenever I hear script, I kind of tense up a bit. Does this mean I have to dust off my coding skills to use GameChanger?
Not at all. That's the beauty of it. GC script works behind the scenes. It handles all the heavy lifting like building and signing transactions so you don't have to.
So I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the dApp experience without writing a single line of code.
Precisely. No coding required.
Music to my ears. But seriously, how do I know what it's doing with my information? You know, with crypto, transparency is kind of a big deal for me.
Couldn't agree more. Just like JSON and URLs are open standards, GC script follows that same philosophy. It's completely open so anyone can examine the code directly.
So no shady backroom dealings. I can get behind that.
With a universal dApp connector, a developer can build their dApp once, and boom, it should just work seamlessly across any wallet that GameChanger supports.
Okay, now we're talking. Universal compatibility. That's the holy grail of tech.
GameChanger leverages those handy little things we all have in our pockets, URLs and QR codes. That means interacting with a dApp could be as simple as clicking a link or scanning a code with your phone.
No way. Seriously. It smells like they put a lot of thought into making this user-friendly. I'm impressed.
They've definitely put usability front and center, which is huge if they want people to actually adopt this. Remember that example they gave in the Quick Start Guide sending ADA to Alice and Bob?
Yeah, I have to admit, it almost seemed too good to be true with how straightforward it looked.
That's the beauty of their GC script. It basically takes all that complex blockchain stuff happening behind the scenes and packages it into a neat little URL or QR code. So picture this. You send someone a QR code, they scan it with their phone, and bam, they're suddenly interacting with a dApp no matter what wallet they're using.
Okay, that is seriously cool. My mind is officially blown. But let me play devil's advocate here for a sec. QR codes are tiny. How do they handle more complex actions? There's got to be limits, right?
That is a very astute observation. And you're right, that's where their on-chain file system, GCFS, comes into play. Instead of the QR code itself containing all the instructions for the dApp, it's more like a pointer, directing you to where those instructions are permanently stored right on the Cardano blockchain itself.
So it's like a shortcut built directly into the blockchain. Now that is some next level stuff.
Exactly. And that's how they keep those QR codes small enough to actually be practical, especially for things like hardware with their limited screen space. Plus, because the dApp code is living on the blockchain, it means it's secure, tamper-proof, and always accessible.
So going back to that payment example we talked about, hypothetically, you could print that QR code on something as simple as a coffee cup. Someone could scan it at the register and bam, pay for their latte with ADA. That's wild.
That's the kind of potential we're talking about here. And since it's all happening on the blockchain, it means it's secure, transparent, and traceable.
Okay, I think it's safe to say that GameChanger is way more than just a simple wallet. It feels like they're building a whole ecosystem here, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what this thing can do. Imagine writing out simple instructions for Cardano transactions. Things like, send this much ADA to this address, or mint an NFT with these properties.
So we've got this crazy versatile wallet that brings all your Cardano tools together, and this GC script magic that lets you program transactions into everyday actions. What else is there? They have to have more up their sleeves, right?
So we spent this whole time raving about this GameChanger wallet, how awesome it is, all its amazing features. But let's be real for a second.
You think it's time we address the elephant in the room?
If this thing is as great as they say it is, why isn't everyone and their dog already using it?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, the answer is, like with most things in tech, a little complicated.
Oh, come on. Don't leave us hanging. Give us the inside scoop.
Well, one thing we noticed in their GitHub documentation is this whole UX hurdle thing.
UX hurdle. Time for a quick translation for those of us who don't speak fluent tech jargon.
Right. UX just means user experience, basically, how easy and intuitive something is to use.
Got it. So are you saying GameChanger is difficult to use? Because so far, it sounds pretty amazing to me.
It's not so much about it being difficult to use, but more that it's just different. Think about it. You're used to browser extensions for your crypto wallets, right? They just kind of pop up, you click a few buttons, and you're done. It all just happens in the background.
Yeah, I barely even notice it anymore. It's become second nature at this point.
Exactly. But GameChanger requires a bit of a shift in thinking. Instead of the wallet being this separate thing that operates in the background, it's more about bringing the transaction to whatever you're already doing.
Because with that whole GC script thing, the logic is baked directly into the website, the QR code, whatever it might be. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. That's a pretty big change from how we usually think about interacting with blockchain.
And they seem to realize that. In their documentation, they basically say they're prioritizing security, transparency, and making sure this thing is future-proof, even if it means it's not immediately familiar to everyone.
So they're playing the long game here, betting that people will be willing to learn something new if it ultimately gives them more control and security.
It's a gamble for sure. And that actually leads us to another potential challenge for GameChanger: adoption. For this thing to really take off, it's not just about individual users switching over. Other wallets, other services, even developers, they all need to buy into this new way of thinking.
It's like they're trying to change the rules of the game while the game's still being played.
And that's never easy. But, even if GameChanger itself doesn't become the industry standard, their work is still incredibly important. They're pushing boundaries, experimenting with new ideas, making everyone else in the space rethink what's possible.
It's a good reminder that sometimes just shaking things up a little, challenging the status quo, can be just as important as achieving mainstream success.
100%. And that, I think, brings us back to you, the listener. Because the future of blockchain, just like this whole GameChanger situation, is still being written.
Okay, so we've explored just about every angle of this GameChanger wallet, all the cool features, some of the challenges they might face, this whole adoption thing.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But now I want to talk about the big picture. What does it all actually mean? Like, what are the implications of all this if it actually works out?
Now we're getting to the good stuff. What could this mean for the average person, the everyday Cardano user? That's what's so exciting here, right? It's not just a new wallet, it's potentially a totally different way of thinking about blockchain.
Exactly. So imagine for a second the GameChanger actually takes off. It's everywhere. just as common as using Apple Pay or Google Pay.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. Paint me a picture. What does that world look like?
Well, first of all, it probably means you're using Cardano for tons of everyday transactions without even realizing it.
Kind of like how we use all these centralized payment systems now without thinking twice.
Exactly. Remember those QR code examples we were talking about earlier? Walking into a store, scanning a code, boom. You just paid for your groceries with Cardano, all thanks to GameChanger doing its thing in the background.
No more digging through your wallet for exact change.
No more worrying about whether a store even accepts crypto. It just works.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, and I like it. But it has to go beyond just payments, right? What about everything else we use apps for these days?
I'm glad you asked that because it's not just about payments. Game Changers could pave the way for all sorts of other Cardano dApps that anyone can use. Things like managing your money, verifying your identity online, you name it.
So it could make blockchain more than just this niche technology that only tech people use. It could become something that's useful and accessible to everyone.
That's the dream, isn't it? And because it's built on Cardano, which is known for being secure and scalable, it could actually handle it, even if millions of people start using it.
GameChanger is proof that innovation and thinking differently can lead to incredible things. Whether they succeed in the long run or not, their focus on user experience, security, making blockchain accessible, it's something we should all be striving for.
It's a good reminder that sometimes shaking things up a bit, challenging the way things have always been done, is just as important as becoming the most popular or whatever.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that, I think, brings us back to you, the listener. The future of blockchain, just like this whole game changer situation, it's still being written.
It's a story that's still being told, and the best part is, we all have a chance to contribute to it.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the Game Changer wallet. We hope you enjoyed this exploration, maybe learned a thing or two, and maybe even had your mind blown a little bit. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
Join us on social media, share the word and be curious. Stay tuned for more.